And good evening, everybody, and welcome out to Saturday Night SpaceFam. There's a lot of happy faces here in the U.S. today. I won't say why. That's not that kind of show, but I know that I've been happy and crying all day, and I'm happy to see so many smiling faces on this end, too. I think if you've ever seen the show before, it's pretty simple. I like to get big groups of people together that are all in the space industry and talk about anything and everything that comes to mind. We got some cool space stuff coming up. Everybody on the show is doing amazing things in the space industry, has done, is done, will be doing amazing things in the space industry, and it's always fun to have these shows and just sit and talk for a couple hours. It kind of is one of my favorite things of the week. The Saturday night show where I don't really have any rules like I do the rest of the week. So glad to have our folks on tonight. So I'm going to start with my virtual right. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Give us your name, your background, social media, anything you want to share with everybody as we kick off the show tonight.
Thanks very much, Ron. Happy to be here. Hey, hello, everybody. My name is Mike Makowski. I live in the suburban Phoenix, Arizona area. I am I guess what you call a child of Apollo. I grew up in the 60s with Apollo and Star Trek and all that. And I said, I want to be part of that. So I've been fortunate enough to have a career in engineering in the aerospace industry, but space is my hobby and my passion. So all the way along, I have things I do on the side in addition to being, having worked on programs like the Space Shuttle, the National Aerospace Plane, a whole bunch of NASA satellites. I do model building on the side. I build spacecraft models of historical space vehicles. And then I write about it. I write little guidebooks for model builders on how to build accurate models of historical spacecraft. It's called Space in Miniature. So if you want to look more about that, look for spaceinminiature.com. I've got some biohistory on myself, my background, my career, my art, my writings at spacecitymike.net. There's dashes between Space City Mike. And my Twitter handle is @MJMakowski. So I'm retired now. I retired from what was Orbital ATK here in Gilbert, Arizona, now part of Northrop Grumman. I started my career with McDonnell Douglas, and my first managers were the guys who built the Mercury and Gemini capsules. And so I've got a real association with old programs and a lot of neat old artifacts and historical documents. So I'm a space history buff. I am a model builder. I'm an aerospace engineer. I'm a space advocate. I've been very involved in the National Space Society. I'm a Planetary Society founding member. So just end-to-end space geek like y'all. So I'm probably in the right place.
I would say 100% you're in the right place, brother. So next up, I want to go with. So I don't think I've ever actually asked you before. Do you prefer Chris or Christopher? Let me. Here, I'll unmute you real quick. Okay, say that one more time.
50-50. I get Mick too. So some people use that as the nickname. So
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Tell us all about you, man. You do a bunch of awesome stuff, not just for you, but for the platform that you, I believe, created and run. And I know you do a lot of great. A lot of great interviews and stuff on your platform too. So tell us all about it, where people can find it, how you got into it, and what your thing is.
Oh, well, thanks everybody. I'm really excited to be here, and thanks, Ron. Yeah, my name's Christopher Mick. I run a STEM educational nonprofit called Space St. Croix. It's here in Hudson, Wisconsin, and it's called Space St. Croix because we live right along the St. Croix River that separates Wisconsin from Minnesota. We're right on the state line. And it's an educational nonprofit that does programs on site at all the schools in the Hudson area, public, private, homeschool programs. We work with the YMCA, Hudson Public Library, things like that. So all those programs are free for the community and for the students in the area. I'm also a NASA Solar System Ambassador, so I do a lot of programs in the metro region area, Science Museum in Minnesota, the Bell Museum, things like that, regional schools and libraries for that. And then I'm also an advisor at the Hudson High School Space Club. They have an after-school club. I founded a rocketry club at the middle school. So a lot of education programs in the community for that. And then what you touched on earlier was kind of a new thing. I do a lot of STEM programming for the Hudson Area Public Library. And when the COVID situation kicked in, it kind of halted a lot of our on-site programming. We weren't able to hold any programs at the library anymore. And so we were looking for ways to kind of keep kids engaged. The programs we were going to have, a girls STEM camp, a girls who code club, just the regular class offerings we have throughout the year. And so we kind of came up with launching a YouTube channel that would feature a lot of STEM content and interviews. So that's been something that's been very rewarding, a lot of great feedback, and a lot of comments from parents and people in the community in that. So we've done interviews with aerospace engineers, people at Maston Space Systems. I have got one that I'm just going to be putting up either tomorrow or Monday with Poppy Northcutt. The first.
I'm jealous on that one, man.
Yeah, she's amazing. So that's going to be a newspaper interview and one that I was able to get, the first female controller to work at Mission Control in Houston. So got to interview Christina Koch on the phone the other day to tie into that interview, talking about her kind of year-long mission on the space station. So it's been amazing. And all this has kind of come about because of the COVID situation. So it's actually been one of those things where I don't think any of this would have happened necessarily if it hadn't been for the COVID situation. So it's been a new opportunity. As I talked to you before, I had never done interviewing and been on social media a lot for that. It'd been more of the education stuff and doing classroom programs. So that this is a whole new world to me. And people have been very kind and helping me out and encouraging. And it's just been wonderful. So very excited to be with you tonight and talk about more of that stuff as we go through the evening.
Love it. And you're doing wonderful work, man. Always love keeping up with all the cool things that you do. That's the great part about the panel. Everybody is doing so many different things in different ways. And, COVID really opened up the door for so many people. And that's kind of the crazy thing about it is, as tough as it's been, the space industry in particular has taken massive advantage of it. It was something that most had touched on before. They used the virtual world in different ways. But it was one that, from education to live streaming to rocket launches, there's so much that was already kind of happening in that realm. And so we already knew how to swim a little bit while people were first dipping their toes in the pool, right? So it's been nice to see how science has really shown in this time. Surprise! The people that understand science and technology were the first ones to be able to figure out science and technology for what we're going through right now. So it's been a pleasure to watch the successes for folks when there hasn't been too much to celebrate. So speaking of somebody who's got plenty to celebrate, it's been a busy year for you too. Star, tell us a lot about all you're doing. And I'm excited to hear, because we haven't had to catch up since the first phone call that we had earlier this year. So I'm excited to hear what you've been up to. And you were muted, Star.
Well, not anymore. All right, sorry about that. It's been a while, Ron. So I'm excited to be here tonight. I have a background in medicine. I'm a registered nurse. I have a primary background in ICU and emergency care. I've crossed over into space medicine. I have done some research on medical recommendations for commercial spaceflight participants through Association of Spaceflight Professionals. We presented at IAC last year. And my first jump into the space world was, I grew up interested in it, and I was a child of the space shuttle era. But my first personal jump into it was with Project Possum. I am a citizen scientist astronaut candidate through Project Possum and IIAS. And right now, the thing that I've been doing the most with probably is Project Possum, Possum 13. There's a group of 13 of the women of Project Possum who, it's a nod to Mercury 13. And we do a lot of mentorship and outreach to students. We do a microgravity contest every year where they are able to compete for a chance to, they design their own science project and they can fly it in microgravity with us. Was excited to do that last year, was testing spacesuits with Final Frontier and flying microgravity. And so doing a lot of mentorship, working on educational outreach, hoping to, Chris, I would love to touch base with you at some point because I have a nonprofit educational outreach program in the works. And so That's what I've been doing with my extra time, which is not always a lot because I'm still working full time as a nurse, but during COVID, but yeah.
Awesome stuff. And, Star was actually, so were you on the panel today or were you just watching the panel today for SEDS? I'm trying to get it right too, because I literally left the panel I was on at SGAC to go to the panel that I was on at SEDS. I'm like, which one was she talking about today? I think it was the one for space medicine for SEDS that you were discussing earlier. Were you on it or just
Shauna
watching?
and I ran the space medicine workshop. So it was not the panel, but it was the workshop. And it was fun. We gave them a challenge. We kind of gave them a crash course in space medicine and what happens to your body when you go into microgravity. And then we gave them a challenge. We set out like 7 kind of things that happen that you might be faced with. And we put them into breakout rooms and they had to come up with their own solutions. But they were able to choose their challenge. And the 2 that they chose was mental health on Mars, how to maintain that for people traveling there. And then the other one was like bone and muscle density loss. And so it was fun. They were very creative. And like for people who weren't primarily in the medical industry, they were they were spot on pretty much. So it was fun.
I love it. I mean, again, it's so cool. But, well, so there's 2 big things this weekend. Normally, every year during Space Symposium, SGAC has a Fusion Forum that starts the weekend before we kick off Space Symposium. So it's Fusion Forum. Then that Sunday night is Yuri's night. Then we go into kind of the last parts of Fusion Forum during the day. Then we kick off Space Symposium that night, and it goes through the rest of the week. And so that was going on this weekend, and it's more like workshops and certain delegates that come in, and they choose the panels and the things that they want to do. And then separately, SEDS also normally this time of year is doing their Space Vision event, and so both things that I've never really had the chance to be involved in. It was stoked to be invited to do 2 days with both of them. So it's been a busy weekend for me so far, but it's been really, really exciting. You still have a chance to buy tickets tomorrow for SEDS if you're a student and want to check out what we're doing. We have a bunch. Tomorrow I'm doing the one that is science communication and space news. Jeff Faust, Dr. Nehemiah Mabry, Bianca Cifello, and I'm forgetting the other gentleman's name. He's from Made in Space, and we haven't met yet, but just a great guy. I've been looking his stuff up this week, and these conversations are great, and it's so awesome to see everybody kind of saying, we're going to step up to the plate, change our entire game, and make it a virtual conference. And there's so many that are coming. They're coming like every few weeks now. Like we can barely get through a week without another massive one. Like Ascend is coming. IAC just went through. We're doing a year-long one with Space Symposium 365. They're everywhere. And it's really cool because so many more people get to come. Space Symposium in particular is $3,000, something like that, a ticket. You can get $300 for the whole year. So it's people that have never been able to be involved in here. The General of the Space Force, Bridenstine Talk, now they have the ability to do that. And I know that we're doing scholarships for them. SEDS was like $5. A lot of these things are really affordable, and it's great to be able to reach out to more people. And I know it's been inspiring for so many. I could barely even really get a word in because I didn't really want to today for the Space for All panel that I was on. It was so cool. Just a bunch of people that I've looked up to for years. So it's been a kind of a surreal year for me. But off that soapbox there, my next guest I want to go to is Sweta. And so this is the first time that we've actually had the ability to speak and talk with each other. She last week said that she would, 2 weeks ago, said she'd love to jump on the show. And we just kept missing each other because it's actually very early where you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your platforms, all the cool things you do, and make sure to unmute yourself first because you are muted.
Yes, so I was absolutely like fangirling your show and everybody who's been on your show, So it was really a great pleasure for me to join the panel today with so many amazing guests along with me. So I would say I'm just an astronomy student first. I'm studying from the University of Central Lancashire in the UK, but I do distance learning and I stay in India. And I have 2 organizations. One is non-profit and one is for-profit organization. And we do stargazing programs. And mainly we have an astronomy dedicated website called astronera.org. So with which I am just trying to make astronomy as a one-stop shop. So people can just hop in there, watch the video courses there, and they get the answers to the questions that they have wondered about the most, like where do we stand in the universe, or how to do astronomy without telescope and stuff like that. So I started when I was 16. And I started with nonprofit organization and got an amazing response here. And so that kept me pushing to do more and more. And now I'm also fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society of
Awesome.
England. And I was selected as one of the, I was selected as one of the top 100 women entrepreneurs of India by IIM Bangalore, IIM Nagpur back in 2018. So it's like, it's given me wings, and talking with people, networking with them, talking about astronomy, it's something that I love. And I like to take it out to people. That's it. I feel like astronomy kind of changes your perspective towards whole life. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm really glad to be with all of you here, and thanks for inviting me.
So wonderful to have you, and I love the way that you express it. And I think it's something that I will never get tired of. Is that I've heard very similar stories from so many different people, but you never hear it said the same way, and you very rarely hear of anybody that is in astronomy, engineering, so on, just for the money, or it's just for the job. I knew it was going to be well paying, and that's all it was. The very first interview I ever did was video interview I ever did was with Paul Hertz, the director of astrophysics at NASA, and Dr. Hertz came on, and we were talking about the past, present, and future telescopes. And the man grinned ear to ear the entire time. And it's been like that nearly every time that I get to do these interviews and speak with the great panels that I have, is that everybody loves it. Mike and I were talking right before most of the panelists came in, is that he loved it as a kid, grew up doing it, is retired from it, and is continuing to do it and be in it because it's just that kind of passionate thing. And I think that's amazing. There's just not a lot of people that have that. I don't know, I know that, so Dr. Pandya, Star was talking about it earlier. I'm sure that she keeps up with stuff when she goes home, but I don't think she's like super nerding out to read the newest medical books. Maybe for something like Project Possum, but I know that she's keeping up with the other stuff because astronaut is in her future, period. Like, she's just going to be an astronaut. There's nobody that denies it. If you've met her, There's just a group. There's so many folks that are in Project Possum that are just, they're either going to do it through Possum, or they're going to be it in their country, Canadian Space Agency, U.S. Space Agency with NASA, whatever. But you just know that's what they're going to do, and it's always fascinating to watch and see that and be a part of it. But it's just, you live and breathe it, and it doesn't matter. It just continues to go, and I love the hell out of that. So John, we actually have a special guest tonight who has been on our show more than once, and the reason that John is on tonight at like 11:30 for him, because he's in Nova Scotia, is that John is releasing another book in his winning, I don't think it's award-winning, but it should be an award-winning series because it's awesome. And that's the new one, and now I have to have one of those, by the way, because I've got the rest.
I'm going to send one your way. And we did win the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's Newcomb Award for Excellence in Science Communication for these books this year. So we're super stoked about that, to get this on the books. And yeah. So am I good to start talking? Or
Well, no, I was going to say, first... Well, no, you're perfectly fine. And that's, I mentioned the fact I'm not sure if they are award-winning or not. If they're not, they should be. And I was right. So it's always I always find like being like, I'm not sure if I'm right, and then find out I'm mistaken. I was correct. That's always nice, right?
Correct.
Good for the ego. Well, tell everybody a little bit about the book series. Again, I've got, one of them sitting here. I've got 3 of them total. Tell everybody about the book series and what this one is, what the next in the series is that you just released.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you again, Ron, for having me on this excellent panel. You guys all look like such interesting people, and I can't wait to get to know you more, hopefully on social media and in the future. I know I need to get some sleep here in a few minutes. But yeah, let's talk about these books before I go. So I'm John A. Reed. I am an astronomer, and I work at St. Mary's University at the Burke-Gaffney Observatory, which we're not allowed to go to right now. So it's a really interesting situation. Usually we have about 600 students a year that go through sort of astronomy 101, sort of astronomy for, non-science students. And then we have the foundations in astrophysics students who are doing their projects like observing exoplanets. And right now we're building HR diagrams. And it's been fascinating because we essentially just remote PC into the room with the telescope in it and control it from there now. And it's an amazing system that's been a lot of fun to get online. So that's what I'm sort of doing in the professional astronomy world, professional university. And I'm not doing any research, but I'm having a lot of fun. And I just finished co-hosting the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's Explore the Universe online program. And so all of those episodes, there's 10 episodes, and they're up on my website, www.learntostargaze.com. Mike asked, where's your university? So St. Mary's University is in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and they've got a great astrophysics program. I graduated with 3 people, I think, this year. I actually graduated this year with just my undergrad. I did writing about astronomy, and then I finally finished the astrophysics degree, and now I still work at the observatory. Yeah, so the other person from my class, Harrison Shushiro, he got a full ride at Yale, so he's going to be doing his PhD there. And the other lady, Sophia Waddell, she got accepted into the Max Planck Institute in Germany, so she'll be doing her PhD there. And then me, I'm just going to keep writing. Yeah, so the series started with a book called 50 Things to See with a Small Telescope. Right now, 50 Things to See with a Telescope for Kids is the #1 astronomy book on Amazon. Sorry, Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I'll take that. But anyway, so the series continues. The book we produced with my wife and I earlier this year was 50 Animals That Have Been to Space. This one really got coveted because it got released on March 20th. But really great book. Check it out. My new book is called 50 Space Missions That Changed the World. And this is one I've wanted to write about for quite some time, because what I wanted to accomplish with this book is figure out a way to get the general public up to speed, because people get into space and they don't know where to start. So my other books focused on getting people into visual astronomy with their new telescope, or getting that telescope out of the closet. This is for people who are interested in space as an industry, as exploration, and people don't realize the rich history that goes all the way back to the end of World War II with the V2 rockets. And that's where I start with Space Missions That Changed the World. So we go from the V2 and then every world-changing mission after that and how it affected our lives. And so that's this book right here. And I think I can share my screen for a second. Is that okay, Ron?
You sure can. Yep. Yeah, you should be able to.
Yeah, okay. Sharing screen, easiest with 2 monitors. I'm just on a little MacBook here. Okay, share screen. All right. Uh-oh, I don't think I can because I need to go into my preferences. All right, am I still on? I'll just show you here. Anyway, just look at how beautiful this got laid out. And my wife actually did the layout for the publisher here. And so, of course, we go through Apollo after we do Yuri Gagarin, and then I follow all the solar system exploration just to get people up to speed. You know, how we first went out there with Voyager's Grand Tour, exploring Jupiter, the Mars rovers, just every world-changing mission, and then satellites at work. Let's see here. We look at, this was really fascinating for me, looking at the first television satellites, you know, broadcasting for the first time live around the world, weather satellites that saved thousands of lives as we're able to predict the hurricanes. Of course, GPS. One that I never heard of before was, can hardly pronounce it, Cosmos Sarsat. So this is the search and rescue satellite system that these days sort of tags on to GPS. Just really fascinating things. There's a lot of stuff here that you would never have known if you're not deeply connected with the space industry. And even if you are deeply connected with the space industry, you'd be sure to learn something as well. Just really fascinating things. And then going into the modern space history, the history we're living through right now, where we have things happening in space that are changing the world, from CubeSats to solar sails to everything that's going on in the space station. And so that's 50 Space Missions That Changed the World. And it turns out the publisher was so happy with this book. They immediately said, we need you to write a sequel ASAP. And I'm like, well, what's it going to be on? This sort of cover A to B. And then I came back to the day later. I'm like, we're going to write the 50 things you need to know about the International Space Station. And so that book will come out in spring. And I've only got about the next five weeks to write it. So that is going to be a trip. I'm going on it, you know, 9 to 5 every day, working on that book there. So lots to come in this series. And after that, it's a book about when humans go to Mars. And it's just a great fun to dive into the research and learning everything I can. And then the most fun thing is just reaching out to everyone involved. So this one involved 2 space historians, actually 3. We had Chris Gaynor, and we had, who's the other guy? Randy Atwood, and then Dave Chapman. who helped me write 50 Things to See on the Moon a while back. So yeah, a lot of exciting things going on in sort of my author world, which is sort of my bread. It puts food on the table for me, but I'm really happy to do it because people seem to love the books. So yeah, that's
You're
my
breaking
shtick.
up just a bit, but I think we got most of
Oh, I'm
that.
so sorry.
I mean, it's not your fault. It's not like you did it on purpose. But before we let you go, we actually do have a great question from Mac Malkawi, and he wants to know, John, how can we order signed copies of the book?
Absolutely. So just shoot me a note on at my website, learntostargaze.com. There's a contact us section, and I will put one in the mail.
I don't know if you've, John, if you've had the chance to meet Mac yet, but if you haven't, I'll make that connection. But Mac is doing something extremely, actually, he's been doing it for a while now. That's very similar to what Lee's doing with Passage. And he is creating Arabic language science communication videos. He's connected with a lot of really wonderful Syrian refugees that are into science that want to be part of the space community. He's doing a lot of really awesome work. One of my really good friends, a great supporter of stuff. So you two may want to talk about some stuff he may be interested in possibly doing the translations of your books and having some stuff go out to the Arab world. So he's really interested in that. He works a lot with Deanna Alcindi and wonderful people there. So Mac's definitely a connection. If you weren't on a show together, I can't remember because so many people jump in and out of the shows. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My first book is in 10 languages, but it's now that these are professionally published, it's a little bit harder from a legal standpoint. But we're getting them into Spanish for Lee's business. For Lee's nonprofit, sorry, and yeah, I'd love to get them, into as many languages as I can. So that'd be really exciting.
Awesome stuff. Well, John, I know it's late for you, so I hope you finish up that glass of wine or whatever it is that you're drinking. The giant bottle that it looked like it was a giant bottle because it was so close to the camera.
It is a bottle of champagne that, as some of you know, my wife is pregnant, and so I got the whole thing to myself here after today's celebration.
That's what it was. Okay, so you actually did meet Mac. You all played against each other for Drinks with Explore Mars. Yep, that's what it was. I feel like you guys you've met before, and I couldn't remember where. And that's what it was. As I hosted, I believe didn't both of you only one of you got one answer right, which made it super fun. We went through all the questions, and there was only 2 questions that were answered correctly. And Jack was sleeping, which is always the fun part. He said he would love to translate your books to Arabic. So I'll get that conversation started later after the show. But John, thank you for coming on and tell us about all the cool stuff that you're up to. It's always great to have you pop on and say hi.
Absolutely, Ron. Thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye,
so basically what I wanted to hop into first is we've got kind of a big week coming up. We have the possibility of the Starship hop, the 15-meter hop. Which is going to be big, and then within a day or two, we're probably going to see the first fully operational the real Crew 1 go to the International Space Station. Yep. So yeah, exactly. And I've got the T-shirt on, so we're both representing it tonight. It's an exciting time for space, really all around the world, and it's especially for the U.S. This is a big change from what we were from. I mean, this is the beginning. I work for 2 different, actually technically 3 different Mars organizations, and we're really looking at the beginning of what is going to be getting humans to Mars. And that is exciting with both Artemis and Starship on either side. And I know that's exciting for folks, but Mike, I kind of want to start with you first. This has been your excitement forever. And how many times have you personally seen us say, it looks like we're finally going to Mars, and then all right, there's some missions and some great missions. Don't get me wrong. Who's not stoked about Viking and Perseverance, the search for life on Mars? We've got so much going on already, and of course, it's exciting to see the robotics missions. But was this something that you were really looking forward to growing up, or was it? Yeah,
I was when I was a kid. I remember in grade school in the '60s, there was this little grade school comic book we get. And they were showing, in the future, in 1983, there'll be a new president, and then we're going to be going to Mars in the 80s. And well, that didn't happen, and a lot of things didn't happen. I've been following this, my whole life, and there always have these, there was a lot of early on in the 80s and 90s, all these promises of commercial space, and these little companies would try to have, reusable spaceships and tourists in space and this, that, and the other thing. And, 90% of them don't come through. And so, I've learned to be either very skeptical or just very cautious in my expectations along the way. And, look at the space tourism industry back, 15 years ago or more, maybe now. The Virgin guys said, well, we're going to have, space tourists on suborbital little spaceships we're going to drop. And they still haven't delivered on that. So space is hard. Space is difficult. Space will kill you. And you have to be very patient and do it right, or you're going to be in big trouble. So these things take a long time. So I've just learned to be patient with it. And I've also learned to not get too excited until I see hardware on the pad.
Too many things you've seen come and go, huh? It was like, oh, this is going to be great, but
yeah, easy. Yeah. So, I think something's going to, what's different now is, for me growing up and early in my career, it was all government stuff. They wanted to go to space with the government. And I always felt that would only change when we got the technology advanced enough that someone could make $1 off of it, and you could do it without the government subsidizing it. And we're kind of there in some ways, but we also got the new twist that no one predicted of rich entrepreneurs with their own money making their own space programs in sort of a, in a Heinlein kind of world. And I don't think anybody predicted that, and we still don't know how it's going to turn out. But it's a new twist, and it's very fun.
I agree, and I think it's a fun time. Is that I don't think we ever, at least from my experience of what I've talked to with most people, is that we never really thought we'd see a day where commercial space flight could be a viable thing. I mean, we've seen successful tests with Virgin Galactic. They might not be flying yet, but we're seeing that. We've seen the Blue Origin, the flights, and you follow the whole thing. It's just like it launched, and there goes the capsule. Like, that's suborbital space, and it's all over in 20, 30 minutes, but that's enough. Like, that 20, 30 minutes is the game changer, right?
You need a business model, and I'm not convinced there's a good business model for suborbital space like the Blue Origin thing until they can go deliver things to orbit. That's where the money is. Sounding rockets have never been a big industry, and they're just kind of doing big sounding rockets. And I don't know that there's a good business case to make that successful with all the investment they've had to put into it. But I'm all for what they're doing. I think they're doing great, and it's good to see the competition. There's always been commercial space. Non-government entities making money off of space. And the first one was communication satellites, and that was commercial. And then it's kind of expanded on that to now you got launch services as a commercial industry, and that's done really well. But again, the point I want to make is what's new is somebody building their own rocket of a design to their own spec. That's not where the government says, here's my spec for a rocket. Go build me a rocket that does this. Nope. Elon Musk doesn't work that way. Elon Musk says, here's why I'm going to build a rocket that does this. Nobody gave me a set of specifications from NASA or the Air Force that says, build me a rocket that does this. I'm going to build a rocket that I think they're going to have, that's going to give them the capabilities they want, and I'm going to go sell it or do with it what I want to do with it. And we've never had that kind of a person with that kind of money to do that until, Bezos and Musk and to some extent Bigelow has come up with. So we'll see where it goes.
Agree, and I think you made a good point too. And I want to get back to that later of possibly with Blue and with Virgin Galactic that may not be a money making. That might not be the money-making thing for them, but Blue in particular is working on the moon lander and so on. That's definitely something to talk about a little bit later, as we're definitely going to talk about a little bit about more about Artemis. But Star, I kind of want to go to you with this as somebody. We're both in the Citizen Scientist Astronautics program. Obviously, it's something that you were incredibly invested in and you're excited about. And to talk a little bit more about kind of what it means to you. So these things are successful. We can fly with Blue at Possum, and we can fly with Virgin Galactic. and the science that we've been working on, which for those that don't know, I'll let Star talk about it a little bit more in depth because it has been a couple years since I've been super in depth working with possum, but is the study of noctilucent clouds, understanding those, and also understanding that part of the atmosphere that we haven't been able to truly study that we possibly can. We're looking forward to being able to try it with these suborbital flights. So I know it's something that for you and all of us that are possum knots in some order there. I'm just Advanced Academy, but the scientist astronaut candidates are just incredible from all over the world. It's unbelievable, really, the groups of people from, I believe Roy mentioned today that there's 47 different countries that are representing now. I know it's got to mean a lot to you, and it's something that you're excited about, and I'm going to ask you to go for as long as you want to, because I need another drink. On to you, Star.
Perfect. Yeah, it's absolutely an amazing opportunity of a dream for me. I grew up in a really small place. I grew up in Indiana, cornfields, just kind of a dream of space. And this is nothing that I ever thought I would ever see in my lifetime. The things that are happening now with commercial spaceflight, with the opportunities that we have as citizen scientists to fly suborbital, to do our own science. And for me personally, not having gone traditionally down the space route, the opportunities that I have now to cross over. One thing I didn't mention when I was introducing myself is that I am doing human factors at Embry-Riddle with a concentration or focus in aerospace. So the opportunities that are in today's world right now for us to follow our dreams are just incredible. They're not anything that I could ever have imagined. The importance that you know, I can't speak enough almost to the importance of what Project Possum has been to me, because it has created passion in me that I just really had not forgotten, but it just lit a fire. And so yeah, it is the study of noctilucent clouds. It does focus on looking at how, you know, we can predict a lot about climate change, looking at those clouds. We do, beyond that, we do partner for spacesuit testing. And, you know, the first time I ever put a spacesuit on, I don't know about you, Ron, but that was just amazing. Not ever in my wildest dreams did I think I would ever be in a spacesuit. So the first time you put it on, it's pretty amazing. And then I have this really cool picture. I don't have it accessible, but last year when I flew microgravity, I was in the spacesuit and we were testing a closed loop system for the first time with Final Frontier. So like every year we go to National Research Center in Canada, and we fly microgravity, and part of that is to run our own experiments. We design them. We write the technical data sheets for them, and then we fly them. But another part of that is that Final Frontier every year has added a new thing to their spacesuit. So last year we tested for the first time their closed system, or their closed life support system. And to be in a spacesuit, pressurized and floating, like I have this picture of me just floating. Just
seriously, it's one of the coolest experiences in the world. One of the coolest parts about Project Possum, if you're not involved in it, is the micro G flights. I mean, it's impossible to explain. You just, oh my God. Sorry, I just want to chime in and say I completely understand. And oh my God, it's amazing.
And in a pressurized spacesuit and floating like that, just no gravity. And it's just like beyond my wildest, what I could have ever imagined, right? But anyway, that's kind of a tangent. But yeah, the things that are happening right now in the space industry, they're amazing to me. And it's super exciting for me. You know, when you think space medicine, traditionally, that's always been a physician's role. And you needed a flight surgeon, and you always will. And that hasn't changed, but the opportunities that we're seeing to make it interdisciplinary is absolutely amazing. So I kind of like have my hands going a lot of different directions. But all of it comes back to my love of wanting to just go there and be there and, you know, be part of it all. So.
Well, I mean, one, what you're talking about is wonderful, and I love this because in our private chat, Sweta has just asked a question, or she mentioned, if I only had a degree to get into Project Possum. I was in my first, entering my second year of community college when I did it. There is an advanced academy that, as long as you have an understanding of trigonometry, you can at least do that. Like Alyssa Carson was 15, 16 whenever she did it. Yeah. Now, there are varying levels of it. So there's one that's actually for even younger students that they have yet to be able to have a full class for, which is the Possum Academy, which I believe is going to be between the ages of 12 to 16. And then 16 through to the first college years is Advanced Academy, and then scientist astronaut candidates are if you have a bachelor's degree and higher. And then each level you get more and more training. You get to do more of the flights. You get to do multiple Gs. Those are really fun. The spacesuit, as you mentioned, you get to do all the training, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that Star talked about. But that's all involved in almost all levels of it. Some of it is just really being involved in the research and the work. You have to have your degree. You have to be able to do like real science, research science, and you have to be able to do that. But it's exciting, and again, there are different levels for it. If you want to get involved, it's an incredible group, and there are offshoots that we'll talk a little bit about project with Possum 13, Space for All Nations, and the Out Astronaut Project. But it's an exciting time because it used to be that you had to be of a certain level to be even thought of when it came to that. And now there are a lot of different options for citizen scientist astronautics and looking at it in a different way. Depending on what your background is, we need really kind of everyone. And, so Chris, a lot of what you're doing, definitely highlighting the folks that are out there in a lot of different ways. You work with a lot of young upcoming science communicators. We mentioned earlier that we're both friends with Abigail Bolenbach, and you did a great interview with her. You're reaching out to all the different places, and again, this is something new for you, and you picked it up pretty quickly. I will say, as a lifelong DJ, you certainly have the voice for it. So, but I know that it's got to be something exciting for you. I think you might even be kind of in the middle of the two. Not only is it something that you probably watched growing up, but now you kind of get to be somebody that's reaching out to these new voices. And it also gives you this fresh new platform that you get to utilize and work with that I know is going to be exciting for you. I know it is for me. And you're muted, sir. Bam! Wait, maybe? There we go. I unmuted you. You're good.
There? Sorry. Okay. As Mike mentioned earlier, kind of being, a lifetime history space buff, I started as a kid. My dad was a private pilot, gave me some flying lessons, wanted to be an astronaut. Got a little bit too tall. I'm almost 6'5".
You really?
So that kind of dealt me out.
I did not know that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was because I went to space camp as a kid. I was Outstanding Camper Award winner, level 1 and level 2. Got a letter from President Reagan because nobody had won top award, both levels, and stuff like that. So it was just a nut about it, and writing to all the NASA centers and very passionate about it. And then when I got too tall, that kind of bummed me out, and went other ways with my degree in communications and things like that. But now it's kind of come around full circle to seeing it kind of started when I was seeing when STEM was becoming a buzzword in education, and what the kids were bringing back, like my daughter was bringing back, was kind of a boring photocopied sheet with just some questions and sentences. And I'm like, well, this isn't very exciting. And I thought maybe I could put together a program on what kind of excited me about space as a kid. And I knew in this area where I'm at in Hudson, Wisconsin, again, kind of on the border with between Wisconsin and Minnesota, just due to the geography, there's not really a nearby NASA center. The nearest one is Glenn Research Center in Cleveland. There's not really a great, now we have the Bell Museum, which has a really good planetarium, but there wasn't really a great planetarium. There's no nearby Air Force Base. There's not any of that organic industry that gets other communities kind of excited about space, or there might be speakers that work in the industry and whatnot. And so I kind of put together a program just as a one-off, almost like, what does your parent kind of do for work day? And just put together a program based on all the things that inspired me, and about Space Camp, which isn't really known in this area as well, and about different aspects of the space program, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, talking about the space shuttle. Put together some of the unmanned missions mentioned, like John's new book, Greatest Space Exploration Missions. And everybody went nuts. The teachers were stopping me in the hallway 6 months later going, the kids are still talking about that program you did. I had kids yelling at me at Target, like, hey, they're space guy. And it just really kind of blew up. So it started as a one-off, and then that's what led me eventually to creating my STEAM educational nonprofit, and then applied to be a NASA Solar System ambassador, because I was getting requests from other people were hearing about this, or a newspaper article in other communities, other towns were asking for a program. And I'm like, well, I kind of set up my nonprofit just for Hudson. But I didn't want to say no. I wanted to always, respond with a yes and be affirmative, and try to provide that spark for kids to be excited about things. So then I found out about the NASA Solar System Ambassador Program, and I applied to be one of those and got accepted. And so that opened up an avenue to where NASA sends me resources to do programs and the training on the specific missions that they're getting requests for programs for, or outside requests from other Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, libraries, things like that. So that opened me up to the whole Twin Cities metro area. And so now I'm space guy to all these students in that greater area. And I just wanted to touch really quickly, because we were talking about the Possum mission and clouds. I've got these Globe Observer is a program that I really promote out, where one of them is kids studying clouds, where they're sending the data into scientists. They're documenting and photographing the clouds they're seeing. There's one on mosquitoes and trees and all these great citizen science things they can do, where I show the kids can be really involved, because they can download this free app on whatever device they have. They can go out in their community and neighborhood, and whatever program they're signing up for, to document trees or mosquitoes or clouds, and then can send in that data that real scientists are using, and tying into what the satellites are seeing, if that's tying into accurate readings on the cloud cover and moisture levels and things they're seeing. So yeah, it's exciting. Every day is a new challenge and adventure, and you just say yes to these opportunities that come up. I've recently this year been blogging now. The Space Science Institute asked me if I wanted to write blog articles about space, and interviews with astronauts or engineers, space history. I'm like, yeah, who wouldn't want to do that? So I'm writing a blog every month or so for them, and it's been a ride. It's fun, and it's just like this. It's great.
I mean, I think that's one of the cool things too, is that you kind of find your niche, and everybody has more of a chance to. Now, one, we have the chance to, period, because of the internet. So many people that I would have never had the voice, and of course, to be able to connect with people all over the world. I was talking about it in one of the panels I was on earlier today. I don't even remember which one it was discussing the ability, to look through comic books and graphic novels and art, and in particular getting into film, movies, TV shows, was Star Trek. And that Star Trek all those years ago created something, and I never thought we would be able to do what we're doing right now. And I did this 3 times today, in 3 different platforms. Yeah. So it's one of those exciting things that we can connect to folks all over the world. And what a better time to go to you, Shweta, is to talk to you a little bit about that. And so where you're at, are there a lot of resources for people that are really into it? Because, okay, so for those that don't know, I know that you mentioned your country a little bit earlier, but do people give us a little bit more background on where you are? Because where you are loves space, and it's something that for folks that don't really pay attention, you think we love space here. You should really listen to some people from India talk about space. And but are there a lot of resources in the place that you're at in particular? Was it easier for you to find mentors and to kind of fall into what you're doing now? Or did it take a lot of work to really reach out and find those people? And you're muted. There you go. See, figure it out quickly.
Yeah. Got it. So yes. I think a lot of people here in India are fascinated with space, and we have lots of amateur astronomers. But sadly, for most of people in India, it's either a hobby or high-end career technical scientific thing. So either we have engineers or we have amateurs. We don't have anything in middle, those who are just doing astrophysics. There are very less people in that perspective. That is one thing, because we don't have any formal education for the graduation degree here. That's why I have to do distance learning for graduation in astronomy. For
Really?
getting
I
my
did
degree.
not know that.
So I think
That's that's really interesting
yeah.
for a place that's that
Yeah,
in love with
so-
space. Like you have, I got to go to a different country to do it. What? Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is so. But I mean, it's like since we have lots of scientists as mentors, when somebody goes to them, asks to them, like, what can we do to get into astronomy, into the space thing? They tell them that, okay, you need to get your maths and physics cleared out, and that is the only way to get into astronomy. And lots of students kind of get scared there, and they don't know what are the career options in it, apart from going to Indian Space Research Organization or NASA. I mean, even me, I get asked questions such as, why am I not going to NASA? People are not even aware of ISRO sometimes, so that's kind of a shame. So yeah, there are lots of amateur astronomers who are working into this, and it's coming up. But we did kind of get to hear the comments when we spent the Mars orbiter mission in space. Lots of people all around the globe were really appreciating the effort of ISRO. But people in India kind of still started questioning, why are we spending so much money on the space when we have so many issues to deal with it here? So yeah, I think that's the thing.
And, I mean, I think it's an incredible thing as we see more and more that so obviously it seems really interesting to me that so many people in the space industry here are aware of what ISRO's doing, but it's interesting to hear that they really aren't. Even though it seems like a country that we always hear all the time how thrilled they are that space is always really exciting, and you all have had a couple of really great years at the minimum since I've been paying attention. And I could be wrong; there could have been much more before that. I'm sure there was much more before that. But I think it's just exciting to see the entire world as it's moving towards space. I mean, almost 4 missions to Mars this year. We just, we're halfway with Perseverance right now. I am so stoked for us to finally have a mission that it's one of its main missions. Obviously it's got multiple, but the main mission is to truly search for the signs of life. Obviously we all had like a little nudge a little earlier this year with Venus, which was exciting, and there's been some changes with that a little bit, and we can definitely talk about that if there's any interest there. But the Perseverance mission in particular is super exciting to me because I'm interested to see if there are if we find signs that just make sense, or for some reason we just see something sludging along on the ground that for some reason that might move us forward, maybe moves the time frame a little bit forward. We start to see more money. It's been a great few years for the budget. Love it or hate it, the current administration has certainly been behind space. We've seen more money in it than we've seen in a long time, and I think that can continue. But I think this is an exciting time to see, but I just can't wait for this mission to get there and to see what we're going to find out over the next few years. So,
a helicopter run. A helicopter.
Well, no, I'm excited that you're saying this, because I was getting ready to do a plug. Is that for Explore Mars, our next one that's coming up is we're talking with one of the folks that's working on Ingenuity. So if you haven't heard about it, it's just like it's a donation, but the donation only has to be $1. So if you go check out our website, go check out our social media. But we have one coming up this week that's about Ingenuity, and it's just, there's going to be something else flying on another planet. It's just this whole mission to me is incredible, and I'm so glad that I get to be a part of it. I've been able to have some conversations and speak with these people, be behind the scenes to listen to them all talk about it. What an exciting time to see something like this. And so I know everybody here's probably got some thoughts on it. So Chris, we'll go with you first. The helicopter. Oh, the Mars copter, so cool.
well, and I heard little rumors about
Wait. Speaking of which, I got to do something real quick because I never did it. Chris was nice enough to send me a package earlier this year that had a bunch of stuff for Perseverance in it, and I completely forgot to ever say thank you. Yes, I still
Yeah.
have all of that on my living room table, actually. So thank you, and I never told you thank you for that. So let me get that out of the way first and let you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, yeah, I'm so excited about the helicopter because I actually took my daughter to an event. Kobe Boykins, if I'm saying his last name right, JPL engineer, worked on all these rover missions for NASA. And he was doing a presentation at the Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul. And at the end of his talk, he confirmed for the first time I had heard that there was going to be a helicopter on added to the rover, that it was kind of a demonstration mission. And it was just awesome if you were in that theater because you heard an entire crowd just go nuts hearing that from him, because the presentation was awesome and everybody was a space peep that was there. So was really happy to hear from him. But to hear him kind of confirm that, and he said it was the first time he was kind of saying at a public event that was confirming that the helicopter was going to be part of the mission. So, and for me on a teaching outreach, and it's awesome because you're looking for those things that kind of get kids excited or leaning forward, or what did you just say? And that's a really great one to kind of plug with the rover, that we're sending a helicopter to Mars and you're going to see that fly. And that gets all these great questions going, because they're like, well, wait a minute, how didn't you just say the atmosphere is like 100 times thinner than the Earth? So how is a helicopter going to work, on Mars? And so that leads into all these great math equations and talking about density and heat shields and parachutes and landing systems and how would you get it to work? What are your ideas? And then we kind of talk about what the actual approach was and how that lines up with what their ideas were. So it's, you're always looking for those things to kind of make a connection, to get the excitement, to get the conversation going. I never want it to be, I'm here to talk about, this for the day, or it's going to be, oh man, Chris is going to be here for 45 minutes and I really am not interested in any of this. So you're trying to reach the kids. Are they coders and gamers? We talk about VR environments and that NASA needs those people to kind of create things in a digital environment before they're going to build it in a real construction setting to see if it's all going to work, on the spacing and whatnot. So that gets the gamers interested in leaning forward. We talk about, nutrition and physical fitness, and that gets a different group interested in, what they eat and how much they can eat, and that they have to exercise like on the ISS for 2 hours a day to keep their bone density up and that. So it's just going through all the programs, all the topics. What can I do that's going to reach this age level, this group, and get them leaning forward and asking me questions, stopping me in the hallway, or as I said before, at Target on a Saturday, they're like, hey, you were talking about, and I want to know more about, and they email you or they find you. And that's great, because then, you've got people interested, that they're passionate, that they want to know more and they want to get into this. So it's fun. It's not a hard sell.
It really isn't at all. And that's, the theme behind the first platform I was doing earlier today for SGAC was about science communication, just being like, there's no reason that science needs to be boring. We've all had boring science teachers along the way, and some of them have to do it. Some of them are just tired. It's low pay. It's long hours. They're not appreciated, especially when it comes to biology and chemistry. And keeping those things interesting, class after class, year after year, has got to be something it's something I can't imagine, especially with a room full of teenagers that are thinking of anything but.
Yes.
And that's a challenge that so many of us will never ever know. And it's cool to be able to be the person that comes in that ignites that, and then you can help, because that's your focus, is to come in and be that kind of person to help the teachers along the way, to say what they're teaching you is actually super cool. This is the front of everything. This is what you need to know to be able to do the cool stuff like what I'm talking about now. And obviously Mars missions are the big ones. The moon's always fascinating, and we love that as well. But Mars is kind of the next big goal. So Mike, I kind of want to go to you on this a little bit. So I know that you were mentioning before that you were there through all the Apollo stuff. Where were you at during like the Viking time? Like whenever we saw the first Mars missions and everything that's kind of come along the way, was this something you were in school, you were too busy for, you were working on your career, or was this something that you were all along the way from then to now? And if you've kept up with it, what do these new missions mean to you? Like, is it exciting to see what they've changed into now and what we're about to find out?
Sure, absolutely. Like I say, I've been following this forever, and I've got scrapbooks. I would cut clippings out of the newspaper of all the early Mariner missions and any pictures of Mars that they put in the newspaper. You know, I remember when they first had Mariner 9 going in orbit on Mars, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's full of craters. You know, holy cow, I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, every time there's a new mission, you're always learning something new and exciting. And so I remember, you're talking about Viking, I was in college at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And if you could let me,
you're more than welcome. By the way, so are you at? Wait, so do you go to Space Fest? All right. So you were, yeah.
I've been, yes.
Awesome.
I've been to Space Fest a couple of times, and I've exhibited my models there, and I've done some STEM outreach. But yeah, I've done a lot of STEM stuff. Not so much lately. It's kind of tapered off in the last few years, but years ago, I would go to grade schools mostly and just talk about what's going on in the space program. But I also had this program where, since I was in the satellite business, I would explain to the students how satellites work. I've got this whole program on, you got a box of electronics floating around in space. What does it do? How do you get pictures back? How does it know where it is? How does it stay in orbit? How does it not melt? How does it not freeze? How do you get the data back? How do you get commands up? So I had this program where I would kind of break it all down by subsystem, like we do in the real design world, and explain in very age-appropriate terms on, well, there's a computer and it talks to a radio and you send codes up and it sends commands and it turns on heaters and it turns on cameras, all that kind of stuff. So the kids will say, oh, that's how that works, you know? And to try to make it less of a mysterious box to them as something, hey, maybe this is something I might want to do when I grow up. So that's the kind of stuff I done way back when. But you talk about, again, back to Viking. I was in college, in engineering school, and I live near Phoenix right now, and I've been out here over 20 years. That's a whole nother different story. But I did go to college at the University of Arizona in Tucson, got a degree in electrical engineering, and went to work for McDonnell Douglas in St. Louis after that. And just for Chris's point of view, I'm from Wisconsin as well. I grew up in Milwaukee, never been to St. Croix. A year ago, we went to the Driftless area and spent some time in that whole southwest corner of the state, but never made it north, as far north as St. Croix. It's a beautiful area. But anyway, and so I was always also not just a space geek, and even in college was where I kind of did my first outreach as a part of the student branch of the engineering organization called American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, professional society for people in the aerospace industry. They have student branches, and we had an exhibit at an air show, and that was probably like 1974-ish, long time ago. So I've been doing stuff since then. But also, I do this model building thing, and let's see if I can do this for you here. Show the window. Let's try this. And we're going to see if we can go to the right. It's asking me for which screen it wants. Okay.
Yeah, it can be very particular. It will take you to the exact window and the exact Google Chrome. They've definitely done a lot of it.
I have not tried it on this platform, so
sure.
Take your time. Let's try this. It won't. Okay, that's later. All right. But anyway, what I did was build a model for the planetarium.
Oh, wow.
You see the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a scratch-built Viking model I built for a planetarium show at the university. And they used it because, this was back when Viking was landing. So I've been doing this kind of stuff ever since. And I have also done one not last year, but a few years ago of Curiosity. Here it is.
Just a note, all of them look awesome.
I was just going to say, I like the 2001 model too. That was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I built, this is also scratch built. It's very tiny. It's only like 5 or 6 inches long, but this is the kind of stuff I really do. This is my hobby, but it's also a passion, and it's just fun stuff because no one does this. So yeah, so this is my Mars thing. And
That's awesome, Mike.
Thank you for that.
I mean, and especially because they're so small and they're so detail heavy.
Yes,
That's impressive.
Yeah,
that's really really impressive.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm every time I go to Mars, we learn something new, and so we'll see what happens on this invasion of Mars from multiple spacecraft. Mars Defense Forces hold up this time.
I think we're.
That's really amazing, Mike. I mean, you've been working in this since past 40 years, and these models, they're really pretty. And we also try to build such models, but not as beautiful as yours are. But we are trying to build such models for the missions that ISRO has sent, and would love your help for the same.
One thing you might look at, and I've done this for school groups, is paper models. There's a lot of paper models free online of a lot of different launch vehicles and satellites, and those are great for STEM outreach. Some of them, you have to be certain minimum age because they can get a little complicated. I've done at the company I worked at, I've made paper models of most of the programs we've built over the years that I've been there, and we use them as engineering tools because you want to fly the satellite up. Well, it's aimed at the sun here, but the Earth is there, and we want to point there. So having a little thing you can hold in your hand that you don't mind breaking because it's made out of paper is very useful as an engineering tool. And then, of course, they're useful as a STEM outreach, and you can make a simple version, perhaps, and use that for schools. I've got some. If you go to my Space in Miniature website, I've got a couple I developed there. One of them is... Somebody mentioned on a Facebook page, there's a Facebook modelers page for space models, said, hey, is there a Mars Insight model anywhere, even a paper model? And I was like, no. And I said, well, I can fix that. So I designed a Mars Insight.
I was going to say, I'm like, I feel like if the answer was no.
The answer was no. I said, well, we'll take care of that. So there's a free download. You go to Space in Miniature, you look for the paper models page, and you can download. There's two versions. One has got more detail, and one is probably appropriate for middle school kids.
We have definitely done that for the kids. When we go to schools to do some astronomy workshops, I've seen that they're really interested into handling stuff and doing something by themselves, which they get them really interested into this. So I have done the paper model thing with the Hubble Space Telescope that's available on NASA's website and the ISS as well. But we have also done some models of, let's say, spectroscope or building an astrolabe. So something like that, as you mentioned with the kids, it's really helpful for sure.
Yeah, it's what's neat about it is if you have limited resources, all you need is some cardstock and a printer. That's pretty easy to find. So that's the neat thing about paper models and STEM activities.
And you know what, Mike, there will actually be some stuff I'd like to talk to you after this, is that with the Discovery Center and all the different amazing things that our space education specialists are doing, there's a lot there. And actually, this is going to tag into what I was going to talk with Star about a conversation that we had a little bit earlier this year, was we have so many different ways that we're trying to reach out to kids now because, one, there is so much that schools can't do, and we can't do. We were used to sometimes upwards of 100 to 200 people in not a very big, museum. It's an interactive museum and science center. And our teachers are always looking for new things that they can do that can connect with kids and stuff they can do at homes with their families. So I might be interested in possibly connecting you with the folks that are really behind that, because those are awesome. That's something that people can do that they would be interested in. And there's not really anybody here that wouldn't have those ideas. So this is something, and even the folks at home, if there's something that you're doing that you see really connecting with kids that are keeping their interest now, when that's difficult, I cannot imagine being a kid right now to deal with all they have to deal with. On top of that, they see the stress and the pressure that's going through, that's just seething through everything from their teachers to their parents to the world around them. And they're not around their friends, and they're just trying to sit at home and stay focused in a way that they could barely stay focused in a place that they were getting up every morning, getting ready, going to school, and getting in that mode. Now you have to roll out of bed and sit at a table in your own room with every distraction that you can get away from at school and focus on one thing. And bless them for that, for everybody that has to deal with that, from teachers and schools on down, to make the decisions that you have to make. Parents are screaming at you, let our kids go back to school. kids go back to school and then they're immediately shut down because some kid might have COVID. This is one of the most impossible situations in the world. And the more that we can work together on doing these things, the more that this will make it easy for all of us as we understand the challenges that everyone's going through. And this is somebody that's not married, doesn't have any kids, don't directly have to work with kids every day. It's just what I see the teachers and educators that I work with go through. But this is something in particular would love to talk to you all about. And why is there? I think there's somebody calling me at 9:10. Why? So there's a lot of awesome stuff, obviously, that you're doing. Would love to talk to you about that. And Star, I'm not entirely sure that we've touched on it yet, but you and I had a phone call with a mutual friend that's your partner a little bit earlier this year that you work on with some awesome stuff. And it's a really exciting thing, and I'm not sure if it's something you can openly talk about, if it's only things that you talk about directly with other possible collaborators. So if it's not something you can talk about, let me know. And if it is something you can talk about, I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Okay, so specifically, what
the robot stuff.
Did you?
The robot stuff.
What's that? The robot stuff. So I do some collaboration with some fellow possum knots, if you will. One of our mutual friends has a company, Protean Industries. They do a lot of aquanautics to astronautics stuff. Yeah, so my role with them primarily is human factors, just advising. I'm not an engineer, so the technical part of it escapes me a little bit, but the human in the loop part of it, in terms of all of the things in space, even the space servicing of satellites and on orbit things, and the robotics part of it, there's still a lot of human factors to that. So that's the part that I do. The company really strives to take the aquanautics part, the research that you can do underwater, and translate that to astronautics. And there's a lot of design for potential. I honestly am not sure how much I am at liberty to speak openly about the designs, but there's a lot of proposals put out for robotic systems to try to get to the moon and to Mars, and to just help the astronauts that are there navigate a lot of geography and a lot of heads-up displays, those kinds of things. So just kind of a lot of back work on that for me, because like I said, I don't do the designing, but the human in the loop and the human factors part, that's kind of where I come in there. So it is exciting, and the things that we talked about with Ron were maybe trying to design robotics for kids. I think that there was an aquanautics course in Florida with a group called I believe they're called the Aquanauts, and they did cave diving. I don't want to say simulation, but they did just GIST work. They did cave surveying, and they learned a lot of STEM and just very hands-on science things there right before COVID hit. And so the things that we talk about are reaching out to things like the Discovery Center with robotics kits and teaching kids how to build and getting them really hands-on and interested in that aspect of STEM and problem solving and those kinds of things.
And so one of the things that brought up that conversation is that we do have a Mars yard at the Discovery Center that is the bane of my existence. I've never been able to figure it out. I was a volunteer there whenever they first started. Whenever it was one of the first things that I had to do, and I had never done it before, and somebody didn't show up, and I was so confused by it. But every kid that came in, and I don't care if they were 4 to 15, loved it. They were just so into it, and I could not figure it out. And I love that. I love that there's things that a still malleable brain can wrap their heads around so much easier, and they love it. The robotics room, the Mars Robotics Lab, is one of the most popular things that we have. We only have so many people that can run it, and now it's so difficult to do a lot with museums. But we have the ability for people to be able to drive them from home, which I think is the coolest thing in the world. That kids can be there, and we can have a camera on it, and then they have the ability to say, "Well, I'm going to put in this this action, and I'm going to wait for so many seconds, and this thing is going to do exactly what I told it to do." And they get a little bit of a taste of what the people that are working at JPL and in all the different spots do to be able to run these rovers. And just to look at it for just a few seconds, imagine the patience and the work that it would take to say, I'm going to make these actions. I'm going to make the Curiosity rover do these actions, and it's going to take 20. I think it's in between 20 and 30 minutes for that to their back. And then that's the reason why, if you look at the area that Curiosity has really moved in, within, I believe, Gale Crater, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's barely even moved over all these years and all the things it's been able to do, because you can only do so much, which is one of the reasons that it makes the helicopter so much more interesting. Like, it can fly out and come back because there's so many things it doesn't have to worry about. There's not rocks that it has to see. There's a lot of things that it will be able to do. I'm just so fascinated by the future of what these things are going to be. But that was one really cool conversation that we had. And I think it's, with as exciting as this is, we have all these different missions from around the world that are going there. We have so much that's going on in space. And now the moon, just this week, became a whole lot more fascinating. There was a sun. I'm trying to think of exactly the right way to say it, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But it's something in the face of the sun that we've seen that there's water there. And it's something that normally we're used to seeing it on the poles. And let me actually bring up the exact article for what came out. And I believe it was Sophia that discovered it. Which is awesome. Not too long ago, we actually had somebody that used to work on Sophia that was discussing it. So NASA confirmed water molecules on our neighbor's sunny surface. And it's just not something we normally really talk about or have heard of before. It's always, there is water there. We want to go back to the moon. We're going to go to the poles. There's a reason why, because this makes the most sense. But now we're seeing water molecules on the sunny surface of it. And the moon, our neighbor that we've studied so often and we look at all the time, we're still finding discoveries about that. And that's the coolest thing in the world about space to me, that it doesn't matter how long you stare at something, you're going to learn more. And I know that's kind of a fascinating thing. I definitely want to talk about that with everybody. Mike, we'll talk with you first about it. I mean, are people ever going to get over the moon? Is it something that you think that, like, I can't wait to see the next people walk on the moon again. But we've seen it before with, by the time we got to 17, it didn't really have the support, really didn't have the money, because people were really over it. How many people can tell you the person that didn't land on the moon that was part of Apollo, that isn't a space nut? But who was the third person on the moon, the fourth person on the moon? Who was the last person on the moon? Probably everybody here can say that. But before I got to space, I had no idea. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I knew Buzz Aldrin better than I knew Neil Armstrong because of all the stories about Buzz. So, Mike, I want to kind of go to you first, and then I'll go around the horn about this, about the moon continues to excite us and teach us new things, even when we think, all right, we know a lot about it, but we just really don't. We just haven't spent enough time there.
You think about it, other than the Chinese, the Western space powers haven't put anything on the surface of the moon in 30 years. So, it's been a long time that the moon has been ignored. We've done things, the lacrosse mission and the polar probes, but yeah, and all this talk about lunar mining and such is cool and interesting, but frankly, I think it's a little premature, maybe because I've seen so much of this not go anywhere for so long. But we have yet to even stick a shovel in the dirt on the moon. We have no idea of how hard the ice is, how much it's embedded, where is it, how much it is. We have a lot of exploring to do all over the moon. Like I say, now they're seeing, ice embedded in the dirt all over, more than just at the poles. So there's a lot to be learned. And that's the exciting thing. And when I was a kid, the moon was dry as a bone. Now in fact, most of the solar system, the Earth was known as the water planet. Well, for crying out loud, there's more water in the outer solar system than there is here on old Terra. So we've learned a lot about the solar system. We've learned a lot about the moon, and I'm glad we're finally heading back there with some rovers and some sending astronauts to the moon, to new places, and it's going to be very exciting.
And I can't say that I blame you on that one. I mean, we always think, okay, it's just this dead world, and that's what we've heard really all of our. Well, at least that's what I've heard all of my life. You know, the moon was cool, but there was enough. Well, now let's go to Mars, and it's just so much more fascinating the more that we learn about it, and science improves. And what was it? I think that originally that they thought that it was a canal system or a river system that was on Mars, and it turned out that it wasn't that. And that's. People thought that there was, and there's all these things that we think, and as things get better and better, I mean, nobody could have predicted what Pluto looked like until New Horizons went flying by, and we're still learning about that.
Still learning a lot. And the thing with the moon is it's close. It's only a 3-day drive. You can be there very quickly, so you can do frequent missions more than Mars. Mars, you got to wait 18 months for the planets to line up. The moon is right there, and it's got a lot. We've only scratched the surface, so we've got a lot.
No pun intended.
To do there, and it's closer, and so it's more accessible. So you're going to see a lot of things happening.
Agreed, and we're talking about anything from going to the moon, having the moon landers, staying on the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon to stay, which is exciting. The first woman, the next man, possibly the first people of color. I mean, there's so many opportunities there, and there's so many different things from the first for humanity to the science that we're going to learn and the things that we can learn to go to Mars. There's very few people outside of one particular person that thinks that we shouldn't that we should skip the moon and just go on. Everybody else says the moon is a perfect place for so many different reasons. Let's go back there. Let's go explore. Let's see what's there. Start something to talk about with you. We'll go to you next. Where is it in your mind? Where does it sit as it more the moon for you? Is it more Mars? Is it more the work that we can do in suborbital, or in orbital space? What are you most excited about? And is the moon in particular something that jumps out at you as a next, possibly a great place that we've overlooked for too long?
Yeah, absolutely. So suborbital is exciting to me, but like you said, it's a few minutes, right? And so, not that that's not great, but when I dream about it, I dream about going somewhere and being somewhere. For me personally, I would make the trip to Mars, but it's far, and it's kind of funny. It depends on where you're at in your life, right? So right now I have kids. It's not something that I aspire to do immediately, but I have sat and thought, if I was older and I had the opportunity, would I go? And absolutely I would. But I do think that I am more excited about the moon. And one meme that I saw just the other day, actually screenshotted it, and it was just this child looking up at their parent, and it said, "Don't tell me the sky's the limit when there are boot prints on the moon." And I loved it, and it really, you see those things that kind of like make your heart flutter a little bit, and that was one of them for me. So I do think the moon has so much opportunity. I love the fact one of the things that I love the most about space is that we learn things all the time that we never could have imagined, and the things that we thought we knew get proved wrong or get proven wrong all the time. Right. So the fact that we know so little and that there's so much to discover is so amazing to me. And to think that because we went to the moon and we stood there, that we know about it is a little, I guess, naive, if you want to put it that way. But the discovery of water is amazing to me, and it's just one example of how much we don't know. And it's those things that excite me. And I love it that you mentioned that nobody could have predicted what Pluto looked like, because I'm totally I'm on the Pluto as a planet team. But regardless of that, I will tell you, it was kind of almost a really nerd geek out moment for me. But when the pictures of Pluto came back, I cried when I saw it, and it seemed so ridiculous, but it's just the beauty of the unknown. And I think that overlooking that on the moon would be foolish. And I look up at it, and I think about standing on it, and absolutely, it's what I dream of. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think there's anybody that would say, "Oh, I want to go to Mars." Like I want to help, settle Mars. I want to be one of the first people there. I can't imagine anybody that would say, "Wait, hold on, the moon's an option on the way. Like it's stopping the moon." I definitely want that. Who wouldn't want to see that? That as you come back around the orbit, that view that changed everything. That Earthrise photo led to Earth Day. Like it led to us seeing it from just right there. I mean, it's not the cosmic backyard. It's like, take a bit of a step forward from where you're standing right now, and it's right there in the cosmic, backyard. And it's crazy to think about that and all the amazing things that are there, but also to realize that something that is there is so much of our history. How much of the moon is us, and how much of us is the moon? With that, with Theia smacking into the Earth, an early Earth, and what that meant for it, and just to think about all those pieces, and kind of what that led to. Had that not happened, where would life be now? Because we see Venus and we see Mars, and they weren't as tumultuous of beginnings as we had here. But neither one of those were led to what we have here, the ability for the life as we know it, us, all the people on here, to sit back and really, truly think and be just what Carl said. We are the universe's way of knowing itself, to be able to, this sentient beings that can sit and think about this and really wrap our minds around it. And that is a fascinating thing. And I love what you said about, don't tell me the sky's the limit. I'm actually talking about doing a show with a friend of mine, and the whole idea is the sky is not the limit. That's the whole point, is that it starts there. You are that is only the beginning. That's barely the beginning. There's I actually had asked Neil deGrasse Tyson a question in an interview I did with him about if he would like to go to if he'd ever tried to be an astronaut, and if he would go to like the ISS or something. He's like, ISS, the skin of the planet is not space. I want to go out. If I'm going to go, I want to go somewhere. First, I want to make sure it's safe. But yeah, I'd love to go to Mars. I'd love to go out there and see those things. How can you not be fascinated about the idea of us someday having the technology where we could land on, Europa or Enceladus and look out at these gas giants and hopefully not have radiation just bake us, and be able to see those amazing views? We see these pictures from Cassini. We see the pictures from Juno, and like the pictures from Juno, especially once the best of the best get a hold of them, they look like the best oil paintings you've ever seen in the Louvre or Pitti Palace or any of the places that you've ever been. It is literally the art that inspired us, and out there are things that were created by nature billions of years ago. And I think that's just one of the most fascinating things in the world, that is, or not beyond the world, I guess I should say, is that art is out there, and how can you not be inspired by that? And also the fact that that's where we came from, that we are a part of that, and we get to be fascinated by it, and it's just one of the coolest things in the world. So again, the moon is, I am totally fine with taking a trip to the moon and coming back before I go to Mars. I'm A-okay with that. So Chris,
and I'm inspired by your name drop, Ron. Back when I was talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
One of the times I was talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, like one of the 8 times. It's weird to me to say it too, man. It is.
I can't say that. I just love when you just dropped in. Well, I was talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said, and I'm like, yeah, things I'll never say. But that's cool.
That is that. Okay, well, let me tell you, as somebody who thought the same thing, that is somebody that is one of the coolest people in the world. He loves to talk about stuff. One of the most down to earth people. I was shocked by it, honestly. But I was doing it during an interview, I should say. It wasn't like we were just hanging out and having a glass of wine. But it was something that I wanted to bring up and talk about, and it's amazing. And I think this is something we're truly lucky to have, is that just like you talking to Christina Koch and talking to Poppy and talking to those folks and everybody on here, Mike, I can only imagine the people you've talked to through your years, and the stuff that I know that you've been working on more recently. As you said, as a retired guy, I do a lot of Zoom calls. I think that it's incredible, the people that we have the ability to connect with, and the people that we look up to, and the people that inspire us, and how open they are to these conversations, because they're just as excited as we are. And Shweta, I kind of want to go to you on this one and talk to you a little bit about not only the things that have inspired you to do what you do, but I know that you're inspiring other folks with the platform that you have. And what does that mean to you? Because you're young, you're passionate, you're right in the middle of doing the things that you want to do, but a big part of this for you is making sure to reach out to others and bring them up as well. So I definitely want to discuss that.
Yeah, as I just like briefly said earlier, that I think that astronomy kind of, changes your whole perspective to look at your life. Because as we were talking on the moon and going to the moon, I mean, from the moon, if you just stick your thumb up like this, you can block the earth, you can block the whole world just by sticking your thumb up. And it's the closest object to the earth. There is so much more to explore in the universe, right? I mean, I'm more into cosmology, which studies the universe as a whole, and understanding that we are just a pale blue dot in this massive universe kind of puts you in the place, makes you realize that you're just a species, just like any other species that exist on Earth. And we don't even know what might exist on exoplanets, planets like Earth, worlds which are revolving around the other stars in the night sky. So there are pretty much lots of things that we kind of take for granted. Like we know that the stars in the sky are the stars. They are made up of the same stuff that the sun is. That we are made out of the star stuff, the iron in our blood, calcium in our bones, to quote Carl Sagan. It just makes me realize that we are such a small part of this massive thing, but we are connected to it in such a special manner. I mean, we are made up of the same stuff that the stars that you see in the night sky are made up of. And that just fascinates me. And it was the sentence of Neil deGrasse Tyson that he says in one of the documentary, that he wants to go ice fishing on Europa. And that just, struck me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like there could be life on Europa in our solar system. I mean, when you say life on Mars always comes at the end of the sentence, but now there was a possibility about Venus finishing that sentence, and there is always Europa. And I did kind of an essay a few years ago as my university assignment, where I had to study about where the possibility exists in our own solar system for the life to exist. And Venus was on the top of my list. And I thought that everybody kind of laughed at that, but I did predict that it might exist in the atmosphere of that. And now that is kind of, a big deal. Now
They can laugh all they want to, but Carl said it 30 plus years ago. Carl said it in the original Cosmos and talked about it. So you were ahead of the curve, friend.
Exactly. So I think this is what I like to tell people, that it kind of puts you in place. I mean, I also work with the tribal students here in India. Just 2 years ago, I started working with them, and they have completely different stories about the universe. I mean, we follow the Greek mythological stories as astronomers to find the constellations and stuff like that, but they have their own stories, and we have started documenting that, and they have completely different perspective, and they know lots of stuff about stars, surprisingly. For example, there is a double star in the Ursa Major constellation, and it is kind of a ritual that after you're married, you go outside as a couple and look at that star. And why? Because it's a double star, and that's a ritual here in India. So I am kind of trying to also look up at these things. There is lots of stuff that's written in the old scripts, like the holy scripts, but it actually makes sense in a way that if you look at it in a scientific perspective. One of the verses written by Aryabhatta in his book Golapada actually mentions that the earth is rotating around itself, and that's why we see the stars moving. But it's surprising that we didn't actually accept this until just 300 years ago. So as I was mentioned earlier, there are lots of things that we kind of take for granted, and we cannot even think about them right now. But there are lots of stuff that we yet need to know. The universe is like a massive puzzle, and the more you try to find answer, the more questions you're going to get to solve. And I think that's what is really interesting about astronomy.
And you nailed it, and that's one of the best things I think that we have out there is that there are certain things that will slam the book shut if you say, well, this is this is all the end of what we know of science, that this is religion, that this is this is that, and there's just no answer to it. And we get what was before the Big Bang. Does there need to be anything before the Big Bang? What caused the Big Bang? How did life start here? How did life start anywhere? I mean, we were pretty far along in this thing, in that cosmic timeline before our solar system, before our star ignited, and before life even became a possibility. We were 2/3 of the way of the current timeline. And that's just a little more than like 10 plus billion years, right? What will hundreds of billions of years look like? What will trillions? And we might be 2-3 trillion years into the future before everything's so spread out. There will eventually be a point where some sort of life might look out into the night sky and see nothing else and won't see the stars. That will someday happen. And what's it going to be? Will it be a big crunch? Will it be a big freeze? Like, what are these things going to be? And there's all these questions. The next thing, and so a movie that not a lot of people truly really loved, but I loved it for the beginning and ending questions, was Prometheus.
Yeah, I think it's not just beginning and ending questions, but also the distances that we think about. I mean, being here on Earth, we cannot even put it into the relatable distances about right now. Just Mike put it in a great sentence, that it will take you just 3 days drive to go to the moon. And people should know these distances are quite vast, and they need something to give example about. Like the Hubble Space Telescope is as big as a school bus, and it weighs as much as 2 elephants. Such examples kind of give them a perspective, but it's extremely hard because there are vast distances and so many questions about the beginning and end of the universe. If the universe is expanding, what is it? What's going to be its fate and stuff like that? Definitely.
What's it expanding into? And one of the questions, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Cosmos or if it was How the Universe Works, or one of them, where they were discussing, they said, nothing moves faster than the speed of light. And by nothing, we mean nothing is there. As the universe expanded, it expanded into nothing. What does nothing look like? Now we can begin to really understand in just the most small possible way that of everything that's out there, we're a little bit more than 4% of it. That 95.5% of it is something we don't understand between dark energy and dark matter. And those things, that's a rabbit hole to dive into that nobody really has an answer to. And in something that Neil's talked about and others, like, well, we call it dark matter and we call it dark energy. But this certain thing might be, maybe it's dark gravity. And like, how can we do this? We have these massive galaxies, and they should fly apart, no matter how powerful that supermassive black hole is at the center of it, and still somehow they stay together. We technically shouldn't really be a part of this, of this galaxy, but something keeps us there. And we look at dark energy and dark matter, and these things are just fascinating. And then there's the vast distances of absolutely nothing. There's 4.6 light years between us and the next closest galaxy. And that's what we consider our true cosmic backyard. Those questions are always fascinating. And nobody told me any of that as a kid. Well, it's just, you have this and it's the planets and stuff. Nobody really, because it's difficult for adults, I know at least for myself, to really imagine that stuff. But with a kid's minds, they can't wait to hear crazy stuff like that, because to them it sounds like what they hear in comic books. It sounds like a superhero. It sounds like it's magic. It sounds like all these things, but you get to give them that, and that's the truth of the universe and what they get to be fascinated by. And I absolutely love it. And so back to a little bit about what I was talking about with Prometheus, was that at the beginning of the movie Prometheus, you see an older life form that dissolves itself, and basically that life that's within it, like the microbes that are in it, that starts life on our planet. And it goes crazy, and it gets into like the aliens and everything else. But then there's the end, as this woman that is she has some sort of faith. She's part of this mission, and she finds the life that brought life to us. That is still not the answer to her question. That is just another form of life that's older and that's more sophisticated, that has the ability to take life to a different place, just like we could do now. We may have possibly already contaminated a few places before we cared. Surprise, humanity. But what else is out there? What has the ability to create life? And those things are always going to be fascinating. There's always another question and another question and another question. And those questions are, I think, what makes life worth living? I don't know that there's an answer to it. Maybe there's not. I know Richard Dawkinson in particular doesn't care if there's an answer to that. Like, it's, why is the color 3? What? No, that's not a question. There's no real thing there. What is the color of 3 or something like that, the way that he puts it. But I think that those things are fascinating. I think what keeps us moving forward, and the fact that we even have the ability to ask those questions. And not to get too far to the deep end, as we're coming up kind of on the end of the show here, if anybody wants to chime in on that before we get final thoughts from everybody, I see there's some stuff going on in private chat there. But yes, a good topic for a science fiction book there. But if anybody wants to jump in on that, about how those things kind of fascinate them, what their big question is that they're always looking more into and waiting to hear the answer on, feel free to jump in, as we have about 20 minutes left. Anything? Mike, you seem like you got like 20 of them with the way you just looked.
Well, I was going to get off on a related but slightly different topic, and somebody just kind of mentioned it in the chat here, is I've always been fascinated by the nature of consciousness, and certain ancient heritage legends and mythologies here on Earth have us, particularly Native American cultures, have this idea of everything is part of a whole connectivity. Like, we're connected to the world, the plants and the animals are all somehow interconnected. And I always wonder about, how does that work? Let's suppose there's intelligent life on other planets halfway across the galaxy. How are they all connected? Are they connected to us? When you think about life, especially intelligent life on other worlds, now you get into this a little bit of spirituality. Is, well, do they have an afterlife? Is it the same as ours? Is their deity our deity? How does that work? Anything you come up with here in terms of a legend or mythology, or call it religion, has to be universal. And when I mean universal, I mean universal. If it works here, it's got to work everywhere. And that's really kind of mind-blowing.
One, I think that one's fascinating, because is it at the beginning of sentience to look out and not have an understanding of the sciences? What's the most likely thing that you would come to is that there's something far beyond us, that there is something that created this thing. Is that exactly the way that the first time that any sentient mind gets to that point of, oh, well, you don't know numbers, you don't know algebra, you don't know physics, you don't know any of this, and the things that you see in the sky seem like what we refer to and label as magic. What would they see? And is there that? So that's one of those deep rabbit holes that's really fun to talk about. I agree with you, absolutely. Chris, we'll go to you next.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I wanted to touch on a comment Star made earlier about Pluto and like the New Horizons mission, because that really hit home for me, because that's one that I like to share. We talked a little bit about timelines and how long we've been at the exploration business here. And I love sharing. I think you touched on it, Ron, I show the kids, this is what we thought the best image we had of Pluto, when I was growing up. And now you have these amazing images, from New Horizons. So some of the kids approach it like, oh, it's the history of Apollo or the space shuttle. And haven't we seen and kind of done everything? And isn't this just like a history recap? And I'm like, this is a really exciting time to be a kid coming up, because you're coming into, you talked about it earlier with commercial space businesses and billionaires. Mike was touching on with their own companies, Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic and all these things coming online. And I just tell the kids, I'm like, we've just completed the first kind of reconnaissance of our solar system, because now we got to Pluto and then seeing Ekaroth and talking about those concepts of how did things form, how did they get here? And the kids were laughing at me, because I really super geeked out on Ekaroth with then I could talk about pebble accretion, which is a pretty high level subject to talk to about like elementary and middle school kids, but they got it. And I warned them, I said, I'm going to lay something heavy on you today, but I'm excited about this and I want to talk about it. And showing them the pictures of Ekaroth on this might be a snapshot of how this engine gets going. You see how these two binary lobes connected to each other, and you do that a couple million, 100 million times. Guess what? Maybe that's how you get planet Earth. And then all those mechanisms get going for comet bombardment. And how do we get, the ingredients for life and water and all that. So they were laughing at me, but I try to put that passion, excitement into it, and they go with me on it, and they start getting excited or seeing why. Because when I just show this little, looks like two dirty snowballs connected, that's not very exciting, but then I get them into it through the end of it. So I wanted to touch on Star's comment before, because I thought that was great. And then one other quick thing I wanted to throw in that was talked about the vast distances. I was able to install here in Hudson a scale model of the solar system with floor adhesive graphics that stick on the pavement, using the sun as an 8-inch ball and everything to scale to that. So that's when you're talking about like the Earth is like a peppercorn, that kind of scale. But that really was great for the kids to see, because we've all seen that textbook image of the solar system where all the planets are kind of crammed onto a page together and there's the sun. And that's, I think, conceptually what some of the kids think. It's all kind of there. And then having that laid out where it's like a half-mile walk, and you start at the sun and you go and you can kind of see all the inner planets from where you start at the sun. You're like, oh, there's Mercury. That's like 12 steps away. Everything's kind of, and then when you get past Mars, they're like, was that it? And we're like, no, we got to keep walking.
We got to
keep walking. Yeah. And then they kind of get it because they get out to Neptune and they're like, wow, that is, really a long walk. And they really get the massive distances between the outer planets. So then if you're talking about a New Horizons mission or a Voyager mission, where Voyager 1 and 2 are right now, we show that with the animations where they are in space presently and how they've left the heliosphere and are out in interplanetary space. That's a great tool to get kids to kind of understand astronomical units and get a feel for just how much empty space is out there, as we've talked about, and how much space we're dealing with, no pun intended, when we're talking about just the distance in our neighborhood with the planets. So I wanted to touch on those things quick because I was really inspired by those comments that were made earlier in the program.
And no, absolutely love that. That's actually, so we have this really large area where I'm at the Space Foundation. So we have our studio, and then we have this whole area that's outside of it. That's just this whole open floor that eventually we will take out the floor. It we'll kind of build into it. Will be the opening area. We're going to do a bunch of stuff with it in the years as we build into this new museum that we're going to build. It's going to be like 80,000 square feet and all, museum of the future, and it's going to be awesome. But right now it's just this big open room, and we've starting to look at the numbers of how small will we have to make the Earth to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And we just we keep going to them, it's like, are we really looking at quite literally the mote of dust to say this is Earth, right, to be able to get out to just across that. And it's not like this is a small room. This is a big area. Right. We could easily have 100 people working in there. But what would it be to go from, the wall of just Pluto and saying this is just to Pluto?
Yep.
Which you think of as possibly the end of the solar system, and not even close. And I love talking about that and the possibilities of that, for sure. Star, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, I love that. I love what we're talking about because I'm on the same page. When we talk about distance, the thing that I always, it's not a question necessarily, but the thing that I have a hard time wrapping my mind around and always love to think about and have loved to contemplate since I was small is the vastness of it. And how far does it go? And trying to imagine, the end of it, and not being able to really wrap my mind around that is so fascinating to me. And the other thing that's fascinating to me is that how small we are. So you see that picture that where we're just a speck of dust in like a ray of sunlight from a faraway probe. And I showed that to my youngest daughter the other day. I had this picture. I said, you know what that is? It's just like this tiny little pinhole of a speck. And she had no idea. She's like, she was trying to guess. Finally, she's like, what is it? And I said, that's Earth. And her face, like her eyes, she just was like, oh my gosh, and sharing that knowledge and kind of imparting that to kids and just the knowledge of it ourselves, that everything that we've ever known, because we think of Earth as such this big place, right? I mean, it takes us 16 hours, 20 hours to fly to the other side of it on an airplane, but it's such a speck of dust. And And it's just fascinating and amazing. And that's it. Yep, there it is. And it's fascinating, just the vastness of it. And so, yeah, I'm right on the same page with everybody else that, it's mind blowing.
And there's also something that I do want to say real quick is that I want to say how much I appreciate the fact that Chris said correctly what is going on with the Voyager mission. Is that everyone's like, it's out of the solar system. No, it is not. It is nowhere close. The heliosphere is not that. And so many people get that wrong. In fact, Chris Hadfield says it wrong in his masterclass. It's shocking how many people say that incorrectly, and and I'm glad that you said that. And I smiled through it when you said it, and didn't even think to say something about it. That you said it correctly, and this is a big part of science communication, is making sure that you tell the story the way that we understand it now. Maybe that science in the future, in 5 minutes or in 5 millennia, will change that. As of what we know it right now, this is the important part of telling you the truth as we understand it, the way that science has told us the story so far. And I love that you said that correctly. But yes, I mean, how many of us have heard the pale blue dot? And just it's fascinating, especially as it rips through the solar system. And you see this in Cosmos. I think it was the last episode, and I was already done. I was already in and saw that part, and it starts with the Earth and it starts moving away, and it's Carl starts like, that's it. That's whole. That's us. And I'm like, oh, yes, it is. This is awesome. And I love this thing, and I've heard it so many times. And it's just like on it. Everyone you've ever heard of, everyone you've ever thought of, everyone you've ever known has lived here in this motor dust. And he just does the thing. You can't stop listening to that voice. It's impossible. And I think that it was. I don't know that there was anyone. I know that there was other voices at the time. But to publicly be the voice of science that was also a voice of poetry and passion and excitement, there was just something to that. And it's just so beautiful that you get all the way out there and you're like, man, you were just right there. You were still just right there on the other side of the room, in the comparison of being on the opposite side of the world, of how far away these things are that are only right there in our own solar system. And it's a beautiful thing.
I love that you talked about Prometheus too, because I think that's another great access point for audiences that aren't maybe super science nerdy as we all are, because all the movies coming out, now I'm blanking on every space movie that's ever been made, but talking about The Martian or Prometheus, like you mentioned, Expanse was one that a student was asking me, like, I watched The Expanse the other day, and is any of that like reality based? Could that really happen? I'm like, oh yeah, all this stuff is really, there's the potential for a lot of this stuff they're kind of mapping out. So that's a great access point. I love when these major movies come out, love them or hate them. I think they keep the conversations going. They keep it in the public kind of sphere, and they are going on social media, or they're getting people commenting about why they loved them or hated them, or why it's scientifically accurate or not. But I love that people keep putting this content out there, because I think it's great for people. Science fiction, I think, where it used to be, the domain of great science fiction writing, and now there's still a lot of that. But I think with the kind of media pop culture we're in, if it's a video clip or an animation or on demand, that really is a great access point for a lot of people to kind of start a conversation, or they were intrigued by something, or they want to know more, or could that really happen? And so I am not one that downs it because it wasn't scientifically accurate. I think it's great that there's all that stuff out there all the time.
There's the moments within it. I mean, if we were to get to another planet and able to land on it, and it was an Earth-like planet, and we were to die there, our microbes could get into, if they have water very similar to ours, and who knows what that looks like in 4 billion plus years. Now, the weird thing is that they didn't evolve in 4 billion years. That's when I'm like, and I get that there's science behind it and everything else, but still was kind of strange to me. But anyway, Sveta, I want to go to you next and let you kind of give your thoughts of what's the big thing that you think about and that kind of sticks in your mind, and you can jump on the topics that we've talked on, or if there's anything else in particular that jumps out to you.
Yeah, definitely. So the aliens is like the big topic that I guess get asked a lot of questions. And one of my mentors, while I was talking to him about aliens, he said that the real question about the life elsewhere in the universe is that Is there life in the universe is kind of a secondary question, but is there intelligent life out there is the real question. I mean, now we have gone so far in science and development that we can surely say that the life in some way or the other might exist, or it should exist anywhere else other than the earth, in solar system, outside of the solar system. But what about the intelligent life? And that's what the real question is. So this one guy asked me one day that, okay, so if you believe in aliens, if you believe that intelligent life exists somewhere else, then why are they not trying to contact us? And we are doing so many things to reach out to them. And again, I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson here, and he says, I think it was one of his tweets or something, I don't remember. And he says, okay, imagine that you're just walking on the street, going to your office or school,
Yep.
and then you see a little bug on the roadside. Do you go and talk to that bug saying, hey, how's your day going? No, right? Because you would know that the bug is not going to understand your language, and it doesn't have the capacity in its brain to understand you or have a conversation with you at all. So, you kind of see where I'm getting at with this story, right? That the aliens might have probably passed by, but never really thought of
Pass by,
talking
lock
to
your
us.
doors real quick.
As
Ooh,
I was mentioning
that's
in
the hood.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning in the chat, we might be just a failed project by an alien kid, which is, as somebody mentioned, a C plus on some advanced alien kid's refrigerator. Yeah, Ron, you said that. So this is really fascinating. And the pale blue dot image as well. So yeah, as far as you go in the space, and I like to do that when I'm kind of mad or I don't feel myself. I kind of just zoom out and I try to see the earth from far away, and then there is no boundaries, no money, no politics, and it's just us, humankind, and that puts us in place, and that's it. That's important thing, I guess. And again, it's amazing to connect with similar minded people who think this way. So I think it should be kind of a mission for all of us on the panel, and who have ever been on this panel or working in this field, is to communicate this well with the society. Because when somebody thinks of scientists, they think about somebody in a white lab coat working with some pipettes and some chemicals. But we are not that. We are just like them. I was bullied in my school, so whenever I go to any school to talk about astronomy, I go amongst the kids and I tell them my story as a girl who was bullied because she was a nerd, right? So we kind of need to connect with each other and form a community, a network, where these kids can interact with us and get the answers of the question that they are wondering about in astronomy, so that they're not scared of the field, so that they choose astronomy as their career.
Sorry about that. I was still muted because there's actually somebody that's in. So we can't directly see the messages in Twitch, but Celtic Ravenva or Celtic Raven VA. There we go. I had to look at it there for a minute. Said that your view is wonderful. It's a great way to look at the world. And everybody here tonight has been truly awesome. We are wrapping up on time, so what I want to do is I hate to stop the conversation on that because it's such a fun conversation. I actually should probably start one of these shows with that. Be like, we're going to get deep tonight, and here's where we're going to go. We're going to go down every rabbit hole we can find and just call it a 4-hour live stream. But since we're wrapping up, what I want to do is go to each of you, let everyone just give your final thoughts on where people can find you, if there's any projects you're working on that you want to share, you want to do any sort of drops or shameless plugs. This is your time to do it. Mike, we'll go to you first.
Okay, thanks. My space modeling is spaceinminiature.com. That's all one word. I've got some model building YouTube videos, so just look for Space City Mike on YouTube and or Space in Miniature or Mike Makowski, and you should be able to find it. So thanks for everybody's
Thank you so much,
tonight.
Mike. Chris, give us all the details. Where can people find you on social media? All the cool things you're doing.
Oh, great. Yes. Space St. Croix is pretty much all the social media stuff. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you just type in Space St. Croix, you should get directed. We'd love to have you follow. And then we kind of put out stuff when we're loading a new interview or have a new event. Next week, I'm working with the Bell Museum to promote the statewide Star Party from Minnesota, which is a week-long event starting next week. So We're making planispheres for some of the participating libraries, dropped off like 150 kits for them. So all the participants will get to make planispheres and have a demonstration video on that. We'll just be posting out stuff all week to kind of do it in a virtual setting. Usually it's in person. We're setting up telescopes and doing that. We have to do it in a virtual way this year. So yeah, just more of the same. I'll be working on, as I mentioned before, the blog writing and the interviews and the posting of STEM content for the outreach in the community. All the school on-site programs I normally do is moving virtual as well. So we're kind of exploring different ways to do that, where it might be packing up a kit of handout materials in a banker's box, drop that off with the teacher like the week in advance before the program. And then I would do like a live Zoom presentation or whatever. And then the kids could do Q&A at the end. And then the teacher could hand out all the items or keepsakes and whatnot for the students. So we're kind of exploring moving to that kind of hybrid model of some physical elements where they could have some STEM items to take home and experiment with later. And since I can't be there in person, to do handouts or demonstrations for that. So yeah, Space St. Croix is all the social media stuff. And I just want to quickly thank everybody. This is a wonderful panel to be on, and I'll be peppering all of you later with emails to ask you other questions we didn't get to tonight. But thank you very much.
Let's do something for the people that aren't, maybe might be new nerds to space and astronomy. What is a planisphere for somebody that doesn't know?
Oh, wow. I should have it. Do I have one here? Because we were just packing them up. I don't know if I left one out. I probably didn't leave one out. I had everything else. A planisphere is that small.
I feel like Mike is looking for one right now, too.
Oh, is he? Because I had it here, but I might have taken them off site. So a planisphere is that little, you might have seen them in a bookstore or an astronomy club. It's a circular plastic disc, kind of in a two-part. It's got like a little brass brad or grommet in the middle to allow you to rotate both elements. And if you wheel it around to, it's got on the perimeter of the wheel. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much, Mike. That's pretty much almost what I have. They're kind of cardstock kits that are out. So the students will be able to cut them and put them together. Yes, and you rotate, you find the current month and even the current time that you're out in the evening, and it'll show you in the viewer part of the window there, where Mike's pointing to, will be what your night sky will look like at that time. So we have like a moon chart for the month where you can kind of keep a log of the different phases of the moon. And then we have the materials for making a planisphere. So that's at the Minnesota statewide star party. So yeah, we kind of did it so kids could be able to kind of know in advance what they might be looking for in a particular month throughout the year, what'll be in their night skies. So kind of introducing kids to astronomy that maybe haven't gone out and done that, talking about light pollution, dark skies, all those kind of issues that you can come up with, making sure you pack a red light. So if you need to see anything, your pupils don't shut down. And you get kind of blinded out there. So just all those little tips for having a good astronomy experience. And luckily we're in the Wisconsin, Minnesota area. We have some areas that you can get a really good, nice dark sky, not by a city or kind of the light pollution issues. So that's something coming up next week for us. But we do things like that all around the year. So if you'd like to follow us on Space St. Croix, we'd love your comments or ideas for future programs, or just to follow along with all the opportunities we're trying to share with the community to make us a more science literate society. Thank you.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you for that quick explanation. Star, we'll go to you next. Let everybody know where they can find you, anything that you want to share, any projects that are out there that you want people to check out that they can be involved in, volunteer in, donate to, sponsor, whatever.
Sure. So I don't have a lot of shameless plugs. Anybody that would love to, I would love to collaborate on anything space medicine, anything outreach. I do have, I think all the platforms of social media, but I'll be honest with you, I'm terrible at Twitter. I chat about it sometime, Ron. It's a big joke. Like I am like 103 years old. I have no idea how to even respond to somebody. So I'm working on it. But that's probably not the best platform to try to contact me on. I do have Facebook. It's just Star Schroeder. My Instagram is *_Schroeder. And LinkedIn is, I keep it pretty simple. It's just Star Schroeder. So collaboration I love. And I keep an eye out on my social media because I am in the works trying to create this nonprofit outreach for populations of students who may not have as much access to STEM. So it probably won't be immediate, but hopefully within the next month or two, there'll be things popping up on social media for that. And I'll be reaching out for support, collaboration, and networking and ideas and just ways to really reach out to those kids that wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity in other ways. So yeah, that's coming.
That's awesome.
Super, super awesome. Shweta, we'll go to you next to wrap up for us tonight. And you're muted.
It's like customary to have somebody muted and talking, while you're doing these shows online. Okay, so you can find me on anywhere on social media. Just search for Astron Era, which is my organization. You can find me on Instagram at Shweta_Astron, which is where I'm mostly active. And astronera.org is our website. Somebody posted it on the YouTube stream. So you can look at it there. We are doing lots of live videos on our YouTube channel as well. And right now we are doing a course about high energy universe. It's a paid certificate course instructed by one of my closest friends from Turkey called Ozgur. So you might want to enroll yourself in that. It's ongoing course at the moment. And in December, I'm announcing it at the first time now here. In December, we are going to have a course about starter pack for astronomers with Athena Brensberger. So you might all know her. She was also a guest over here. So you might be interested into joining that. Yeah. So keep following us on social media. And again, just as Star mentioned, I am also very happy to collaborate and talk about astronomy. And also all the panelists, I hope to have you on our instructor board one day talking about astronomy with our students as well. Thank you so much, Ron, for inviting me. And it was so great meeting with all the other panelists. And I'm going to spam their emails. And I'm going to hunt for collaborations now. Thank you so much.
One of the reasons I love the show, and that's really the point of the name, SpaceFam, is that, again, some of these shows are put together so far in advance. This literally came together this afternoon with most of these folks. Shweta was actually the only one that was going to be on the show tonight for sure, and she was almost on the show 2 weeks ago, and that's what makes it so fun. I was actually mentioning this to Mike beforehand. I think they're more exciting when I have no idea who's going to be on the show the day of. We had no idea where this conversation was going to go tonight. We'll generally take some ideas and say, we have this cool thing coming up, and we barely ever talk about that because other conversations come up, and that's the most fun part about people in the space community is that if you ever get the chance to sit down with these folks, no matter what episode it's ever been, at a bar with any of them randomly, you are going to have real, true, deep conversations that are really, really exciting. It's one of the reasons that I love that I get to host the show and sit in the background and just grin ear to ear all night. So thank you all so much for coming on the show tonight. We'll see you all next week, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time now. I had to get used to that. And don't forget, actually, if you are unaware, at the bottom right now is scrolling, the first Radian telescope actually releases in 4 days. And I get the first one off the line, so I will have my very first telescope, hopefully by the end of next week, that is actually my own telescope. So I'm going to be really excited about that. We're going to be doing something here on the Twitch channel. If you're not on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Clear Skies Network. And I'm sorry, /. Yeah, there we go, / Clear Skies Network. And we're going to do an unboxing with me and the people that created it. So I'm really excited about it. Hopefully it gets in by next weekend and we can do it. But I'm really looking forward to that. So all kinds of great shows on the channel. Please come over and subscribe if you're watching it on YouTube or my Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or wherever I'm at right now that you might be seeing me. That's not Clear Skies Network. Please go and subscribe. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you all on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.